Welcome to Pure Signal, where we digest the latest and greatest in technology, AI, machine learning, automation, all that good stuff and more to help you, yes, you, give you strategy-focused insights for your business. Send it to, I guess we're going to go with infinity and beyond again. I think that went really well last week, so we'll just say that. My name is Ryan Medellin. I am a manager in our marketing solutions practice, and I am joined by my trusty sidekicks, as always, our North American CEO, Kevin Erickson, and our Global Chief Innovation Officer, Jake Carter. Gentlemen, good morning. If only people could hear what was going on before the record button got hit. Yeah, we thought the record button was on.
That's my bad. But did you catch that we got demoted to sidekicks?
Well, and then accentuating that global over North America too. And we got all kinds of emotions going on.
Tell them that you demoted me.
Yeah.
I think that's the running bit, is Jake's title changes every episode.
It is.
Well, you just keep it going.
The practice changed for Ryan. I mean, all of a sudden he's in a different thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
A lot of big stuff.
It is.
And anytime I can call a CEO and Chief Innovation Officer my sidekick, I'm just going to take that opportunity.
All right.
That's fair.
So
I think you should do that.
I asked for no apologies.
Yeah, well, we're talking about that. Sidekicks. I can deal with that.
I can work with that, yeah.
Well, it's been a handful of episodes since we've reformatted Pure Signal and have brought in some new voices, myself included, Jake as well. And so far, we've had a lot of really great episodes, a lot of really great topics. We've discussed things like planning for 2026 and how AI fits into that, what C-suites would like to be able to do with that newfound capability and how they would like planning to look, even though it may not change just yet, what that could look like. We've talked about how to get buy-in for your projects. We've talked about how to not only get buy-in, but once those projects start, how to stand out amongst competition. So I highly recommend going back, listen to those episodes on those topics, because those are great. And we have a lot of exciting things coming up in the future here. We know we're heading into the end of the year. Almost Thanksgiving. We're going to be boots on the ground at AWS reInvent. We'll also have a presence at CES. When I say we, I mean the Pure Signal podcast, which means we're going to be bringing a lot of great daily content that'll be posted to all the proper social channels where you can find us. We'll drop that link in the pod. But one of the things I really wanted to do is we spent a lot of time looking ahead to 2026. We're also looking ahead to the events that we have coming up. But I wanted us to just kind of just sit in the present right now and look back a little bit, if you will, to the year that was 2025. It feels like a lot of big stuff happened, whether it's personal, business, technology related. And in the era of Thanksgiving upon us, I thought it'd be fun to maybe do something a little bit different than we're used to doing on this pod. And that's a little bit more of a relaxed episode of talking about what we're thankful for. And that could be an array of things, like I said, whether it's maybe it's a piece of technology, business or personal related that has just changed your life over the past year, personal goals, outcomes, and then things related to the business or the industry that you all really feel like has made an impact on you for 2025. So let's kick off with some initial thoughts. Would love to hear just a recap for you both and for the year, and then we can kind of get into the nitty gritty.
Well, I mean, actually, do you want to share what you were talking about before I inadvertently stopped our recording? I mean, I actually really like your annual tradition you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's interesting. We're a few weekends, probably 3 or 4 weeks out, business weeks out from the end of the year. Thanksgiving be late, but I annually go spend time with my father in the woods, and so that's we go do that this kind of middle of November. I grew up in Wisconsin, so I grew up in Under Michigan. So hey, I'm headed out to do that later today, and just really, it's been a fun thing we've done for many, many years now, going back to even as a kid, we're able to do that, join him and his brothers and his father. So, but I'm just really appreciative of, for me, it's kind of the signaling of the start of Thanksgiving and Christmas and year-end holidays. And so, but, so I think that's probably why I was kind of thinking about just kind of getting into this reflexive mode, from a personal perspective. And, and we'll get into the actual topics, but I just want to, one more thing on top of that is just, it's been a really fun year. We're joking about titles and people in this, and just, it's really a joy of mine to be able to kind of interact with you guys in this group. But just, from where we were at a year ago, I mean, we've talked about before on the podcast, the North American leadership team, that's all something new, that my role was new. And it's kind of been about a year now since we've been publicly announcing that. Just the amount of changes, just personally, professionally, what we've done, where we're positioned. You can get more into that if it's helpful. But what it really ties back to me, the business and technological environment today, our client environment is such different than it was a year ago. And it just really quick headlines, and we'll dive more into it, Ryan, if it's where you want to take us. But just AI going from concept to from idea, concept, velocity to now really thinking how businesses change. Even like the time for us going into redefined, like thinking about how our clients and customers are really envisioning a world that's different. How do you help our clients and have and really the privilege? I mean, one thing why I've been love being in professional service and consulting for the majority of my career is that the trust that your clients have to have you come in and help them think through their toughest challenges. And the ability to do that with a really AI lens, technology, to great partners and great elements of that. And it's just been, I feel like what we're doing on the day-to-day with our clients today is just so much more interesting and fun than we were a year ago or 6 months ago. And I'm just so confident and excited about the future. And just even coming back from your innovation background, I come from more of a technology scale, perspective, and just really thinking about how we organize businesses and around different concepts and working through that. So it's just really fun, and it's really cool work. I think it's meaningful work, and then how that ties back then into just I think it's there's different pockets of the economy, domestically, globally, that are working, but the one that we're playing in tends to be doing really well. Obviously, we see that as part of our parent company as well in terms of playing in certain industries, and so. I just feel like we're really fortunate that our business is better today than it was a year ago. And I know there's elements of parts of the economy that can't say that. And then when it comes back into, just really where, what's so fun as a leader now that is that I feel like we're leading towards growth again. We're leading towards innovation, change. There's a lot of, you got to pull your clients and your team through that process. But the questions and the challenges that we're facing today are really more about optimism, about where we're going and where, I'm not even talking about just our company, but just more broadly than that, which is very different than a year ago, which is like, man, how are we going to build this structure? We're going to be here. We got to, do we know enough about these emerging themes and it's actually incredible to our clients? We have a learning culture. And so, those are all some of those things. And then my own, just again, personally in that, and it's been fun to just learn different things this year. Some of that's in my role, but just even a lot of it's tied back to AI and driven changes, how that comes back into how we structure our business, how do we respond to that, what do we need, and what's different about how we do work, how our clients expect outcomes. So this is my own personal learning and how I can hopefully help lead and guide our piece of business that we're in on that. So that's just kind of then. Obviously, a little bit of slow down and all those things are great too, right? But that's just my initial insights. I just think it feels radically different for where we were at a year ago. Like many times at this year, I'm tired, and one thing's maybe different this year. It's been less spikes for me. It's just been a constant high cortisol from the entire year, so I'm probably more tired than I even really realized just because it's been a constant. But so I'm definitely eager to slow down over the next 4 to 5 weeks, full throating reevent, which won't necessarily be. I'm glad for the Vegas industry that they can do a reevent CES in their slow periods. But anyways, there you go. So what about you?
I mean, it's funny for.
Do we have similarities? That's
we have similarities. That is fun. You actually hit on a lot of the themes I was going to hit on. Like, crap, what am I going to talk about now? Okay, so for me, we'll come back to the personal part because that's fun.
Yeah.
But if I think about the work part, I actually started thinking about, okay, well, what are the projects from this year that I'm thankful we got to work on?
Yeah.
The one that keeps coming back to me, this is totally personal, is, and it's the same theme that you were mentioning on just the type of work is different. Like, we got to work with a Fortune 30 company, helping them shape how are we across our company using AI to change the way that we do marketing, which then to me, that works to just thematically, the types of stuff that we get to work on this year is so much more fun. So we've been helping organizations think about, okay, we know this AI thing is happening. We don't think it's going anywhere. How does our organization change in light of that? What are the new roles we need to be adding? What are the roles that are changing? What's the technology we're adding? What is this all building towards? What's going to look like in 5 years? And that's just fun work. So then my meta theme, and it's actually very similar to what you were saying, is I am thankful as a consultant, as a technologist, as a wannabe technologist, that we get to be doing this type of work in this moment. Because I think, you've got the big paradigm shifts that happen in technology, and I think we're in one of those big paradigm shifts. And like, frankly, that's just fun. So that's my big work theme.
Yeah, I think too, along those lines, Jake, what's cool to me about where we work in the industry we're in is we get to be agnostic, and we have everything at our disposal of where we want to explore, whether it's tools or strategies or just what's at our fingertips is seems pretty endless. We can go out and get whatever we want or need to make these big things happen for projects that we're working on or clients that we're working with, where we don't really have to play favorites or anything like that. We can just go see what works best and run with it, depending on the situation. So for me, that's pretty cool that we're able to do that.
Well, again, and building on that, really is interesting right now is that I feel like the combination of creativity, curiosity, thinking become more important, whereas like the actual mechanics of how you do work or projects or the speed of what information and different things are at your fingertips now is that we continue to see what was the primary task just a few moments ago now becomes operationalized in a way that I don't think I would have assumed, and if surely a couple of years ago, but surely not a decade ago. And so which now allows, I think, for you and really for us as teams, humans, and broader section, you're actually able to do more enjoyable work. And particularly in what work. And again, you were very also mindful of the roles that we play, what we get to do. That's not everyone has that same story in our company, but perhaps more broadly. So I say that with a bit of, although it's very exciting for us and interesting, I also think there's a social role that we need to play, and how we just continue to help allow more and broader elements to feel dependent from this. But it's a joy for what we get to do. And I think that, I think the heart of what we've done as a firm, and I think the heart of what we've done as hosts here is that it's always been about working with our clients to help envision a future, helping them see something they can. It's about getting on the whiteboard to be able to get ideate that. It's about helping our team to grow and expand and take really smart raw talent and make them into amazing professionals and impact. And I think that's it's fun to be able to do that and spend times on that versus you would in the mundane task of just trying to run, grow, and all development. So, and I'm really hopeful that this is an ushering in a moment that is going to last a little bit. Like this is not, I don't think this is wow, it's going to be a flash in the pan. I think this is the next bit of season, and I think we're gonna see huge shifts for companies and technologies and processes and way things that are get done. And I think there's going to be shifts on how our average age of our team is 27, so how we motivate and grow and develop talent is always a really fun challenge. And I think a lot of companies are trying to asking this, and so I think it's I'm actually really bullish heading, going into the end of the year. You're going to do a natural slowdown, but being really excited about what's on the other side of that is really cool. I'm not certain I could have said that with the same authenticity the previous couple of years around this time. And so I just, it's good to restore, but it's also really excited to be able to get after it. So, and just even like the type of clients, we can talk more specifically with the amount of projects that we're doing, who we're doing that for. I'm grateful. I'm literally, there's times when I'm just like, literally thinking about, I'm grateful for where we're at and what we get to do, and the fact that we've continued to have an amazing team around us that earns the right for us to stick around. And I don't take that ever for granted.
Well, I'll build on that. So you mentioned two things that I think are really interesting, and this actually builds on your tech agnosticism. You brought up learning. One of the things that I think makes this very fun for us right now is the state of the art is changing so quickly, and the platforms that are best at something is changing so quickly. So part of the fun is we get to be in this kind of constant phase of learning with our clients. But you brought up the other one that's another point that I'm personally very thankful for, but I think this is true of a lot of us, is the team. Like, yes, we're in a very fun moment. Yes, we get to do very cool work. It's still work. The thing that, really, at the end of the day, just changes the game for me is like, I really like the people that I'm doing it with. I don't say that in a trite way. Like, I'm personally really grateful for that.
Yeah, I think one of the things, as we're talking about like what we're thankful for, in my mind, one of the things I think about that I'm very thankful for is obviously to be here and be able to be on this podcast with you both and have that time with you all to hear how you think and what, is on your mind on a daily basis and looking ahead and all that. And, when you asked me to be a part of this podcast, I think, the first thing was like, oh, Ryan's a broadcaster. It makes sense to bring him in and do something like this. And I felt like at the time that was my only role. But then as we've started to do these episodes, it's become very clear to me that we have a really good mix for all these things that we're thankful for and that we're talking about, to be able to really, next year go into really great detail and really great thought about what's happening, because we have leadership from a company level, we have innovation, we have the art of possible with you, Jake. And then with me, it's like, what does that look like for the day-to-day, middle management person, right? So the mix that we have here, I think really gives us a good look and allows us to be able to reflect on everything that's going on from all these different levels. And for me, that's like one of the things that I'm extremely grateful for and thankful is to be a part of this and kind of be able to have carved out my role in that form and fashion.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, maybe let's go through a little bit of maybe go back now to your business and tech,
Okay.
and then just, whether it be project-based and the more examples that you may have. But I could tell you one thing that's interesting to me, and this is not so much am I thankful for, it's more of a just kind of see. It's a year ago on this podcast and that during that iteration, and it was really not even about the fact that it's pivoted a bit, but it's just simply we were talking about models, we were talking about hardware, we were talking about where it sits, where it goes, like it was really around the mechanics of it. I know there's a lot of people, really smart people that still think about that. My suspicion is there's not as many companies that are thinking about that. At that point, it was like we have proof of concept, AI's going to come, and we need all this crap to be able to make it work. I think what we're at today, a year later, is some of that stuff there. There's going to be certain companies that have competitive advantage by thinking about some of that, potentially probably where you use your own data, your own models, where they're at, how do you build that? But there's less thinking about, hey, I'm going to create my own stuff versus I'm going to modify and learn. And now it's more around maybe where I think is a more tangible place to play, which is how does it change? How does it change how we do things? How does it change departments? How does it change this elements of that? How does it speed this up in a way that's not just personal velocity, but with organizational change? How does this open up things? And that's just a lot more. I know it's more fun for I think us, maybe not as much fun for Vincent and Jason, but I actually think it is for them too in the context of it's just more. It's less in the company perspective. It's expensive, but it's a different type of expense. The trade-off expense is actually more important, I think, at this point than the actual investment in technology capability or in actual elements. You have to have the right talent, you have to have the right thinking, you have the right focus. So I think that's an interesting thing that's different. I think we knew that in the data components, right? I always were joking with Vincent around the whole construct of data is the new oil, but it's so true, but where you're playing around that, but it's a lot easier to go after that. And then the ways that you can do it today, how that accelerates, it actually creates clarity, I think, for companies, to what they have to go do, where to invest in. And then I think it's almost like you can, and I'm not sure everyone can do this, but in many ways, I feel like you can actually just jump over the sins of the past, so to speak, because it's allowing you to restructure a bit, so you don't have to make all these investments in things that are just trying to figure out get all the different systems of data, all these different spare stuff. It's so much easier to do it in a cheaper way, and so which I think is helping usher the change. So there are a couple of business elements. Now, again, there's all kinds of different tools, all kinds of different vendors, all the different stuff that works with that. That's I think that just as you're seeing with as we saw 10, 12 years ago with the cloud who won those races, I think the same players are in a pretty good spot to be able to be in position to win this race too, at least this part of it. And so I think that's some of the things then how that's now shifting to, again, the work that we're doing with our clients. It's just so much more bold and innovative than just simply go give me some of this stuff. So.
Right. Yeah. Give me some of that AI.
Yeah, give me that AI.
No, I agree. I think the moment, and it's a good point. I have not really sat down and thought about this year versus last year is very different. To me, the shift is we are not anymore largely in the moment of, hey, let's convince our clients that you need to be focused on this. That has shifted. Now it's the application. And even more so, I know we use this word too much and it's overplayed, but it's the transformation of like, all right, let's think of all the permutations of like, what is everything that changes based on this?
Yeah. Well, and we're not, you know, at least so firm is working on this, and the many are, you know, we're not putting it there. But I think the other thing is that we're seeing a shift in our particular industry, some more the professional service side of it, is we're seeing a rapid shift from hours to outcomes, and which I think is scary if for some, and when you're going through it and to get into different firms or different levels of maturity, but it's such a better conversation. Right, you know, when you're actually selling impact, it's a natural partner who you're working with, and I mean, for being in this business for a long time, I mean, and particularly the way that, you know, where we play and the size we play, it's refreshing. It's a so much more fun conversation to be able to differentiate yourself on that, and really helping our clients. You know, I mean, just like us as we support our clients, but helping the people in our clients as they're trying to differentiate themselves and their departments and against their competitors. Like, it's such a better way to do it than to try to like have it tied back to you know, some random, you know, this is you're gonna help pay you your measure of time.
Yeah. I mean, it's like going back to, we've done a lot of remodeling at the house recently, and our neighborhood is one of those neighborhoods where houses are getting torn down left and right and new ones are getting built. And that's outcome based, right? It's not hey, this is the bucket of hours you have to build it. It's, hey, we want a house or we want a new kitchen and this is the vision for it. And, you know, you're done when it's done. So that does make sense that you're more excited about that, because exploring those types of ideas and thinking about all these different finishes and all that stuff, like that inspires the mind more than anything else, rather than thinking about how much time it's going to take when you go into that kind of endeavor.
And it rewards people and companies that are innovative, think about differently. It rewards a lot easier for us to measure impact for our people. And I think as somebody that tried to lead and motivate teams for most of my career, I think it's, you know, how do you continue to do that in a way that encourages people to want to put the time and energy in? Like, for some people, that's a lot. For other people, it'd be different raw skills and abilities. But yeah, I think some of the things we were talking about a year ago too were, you know, hybrid work environments, return to offices, you know, generational changes of people's interests in work and not working. You know, some of those things are still existing, but those are a lot of those are largely fallen off as well. I mean, I think most companies decide you're in the office here now, you know, and you know, or we come back to a world where many of us were pre-pandemic, where you kind of have like trust your employees type scenario, which I think is a much healthier spot. You know, I think the whole construct of, you know, sure, there's different degrees of people that want to do elements, at least for our business. I feel like right now, if you don't have a personal motivation to learn and grow, like, you are going to get so far lax that it's not about what your generation wants or doesn't want. Like, it's fundamentally, like, and that's in the, which I think at the end of the day, you want people to get rewarded for, you know, for what they're able to do, and you also want to be able to make sure that people, you know, a wide breadth of how you make sure people can do that and have access to that. But like, at the end of the day, I mean, there was really moments in the last couple of years, we debated on this and other elements of like, what is the workforce of the future? What is the work of the future? And those themes are still around, but they're not as scary as they were a year ago. I think it's actually easier to find the folks that are the ones that are excited about this moment in time are easier to find right now, because they stand out so much. And so it's just making sure you have enough of them to pay for.
Well, I mean, maybe a slight twist on that. We're still having the debate, but it's a different debate.
Yeah.
Like, we're still talking about the workforce of the future, but it's a completely different conversation.
A year ago,
Yeah.
Let me ask you both this, because I'm very curious about this as we take this time to think about reflection and what we're thankful for the year that was. In y'all's roles, very busy. You're on the move, running 1,000 miles an hour. You obviously have, you know, time off and that stuff scheduled throughout the year. But how often are y'all able to go back and reflect and think about what's happening? And I imagine it's a very tough thing to do, because it's always forward looking. What's the next thing? But first off, how important is that for you, and how often you're able to do that? And maybe some strategies that, if people who are listening that are in the same positions as you both, how important that is, and how to make it happen, of just taking that time to reflect.
I mean, my honest answer is I don't do it as much as I should do it. That's the honest truth. But maybe from a strategy standpoint, I'm going to make a very weird connection. I think this topic is similar to relationship health. This is just complete random connection. I was reading the other day that the 777 rule on relationship health, a date every 7 days with your significant other, some sort of slightly longer getaway every 7 weeks, and then some sort of like real break every 7 months. My weird connection for you is I think this is probably something like that, where that's, there's a similar cadence of, hey, on the short term, there should be a quick pause and you're just, doing some reflection. And then in the medium term, there's a slightly longer pause. And then, maybe once a year, you're doing a real, hey, I'm going to go spend a weekend or a week in the woods with my father and actually hit pause. But
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. And I think it's making sure that we find the time. And I think that, and that's, I would say, probably moments in such in my life and career and kind of kids, everything else, all the different things you do get thrown into that. But, I think the year end is a natural moment for this. I think, I'm a big believer in new beginnings. Whether that's a new year, a new quarter, a new month, a new week. I mean, often a new day, right? Like there's elements of just personal practice throughout that process to work through that. I think we've talked about just before I more naturally have lived a bit in the future. And so, how you tie that to what in the future, to what you see, where you go, and how that ties back to what we do. Yeah, it's a big part of, what I think my day job is. But, I think it's important, I'm still trying to get, this for many, many years. How do you get better at actually being more intentional about how you measure what we do? And that's something. So I'm in a lot of several months ago, we were talking about 2026 planning, that where my head was at, now I'm really about the outcomes for next year, personally and professionally. And but I think I will tell you some more tactically, you asked me tactically, I think there is absolute moments of you need to have a little bit of reflection of what worked, what didn't work. I think thinking about the outcomes, I think specifically, like right now, but I'm looking at 2026 personally, professionally, professionally for us, going into this year, it was organization, it was AI adoption, it was changing the culture, it was a bunch of different things, but it was still a bit swishy. And I think so now it's okay, well, how do we actually measure, and even Jake, some of the things that you're doing, how do we actually take these ideas and make them more operational and packageable and work through that? How do we tie that back to more specifics, and how do we showcase different things? I think that is a moment of reflection. But just going back personally, I've caught a lot this year, a couple more miles this year than I have in a while, and I'm very thankful for the flight time. I tend to use that as a moment of daily and weekly reflection. One of the areas where I'm still old school, I physically write all those thoughts out and for clarity on that. I think reading provides that. I think we all have different slightly jobs. A lot of my reflection in the moment is around team, right? I'm mostly measured by impact of my team more so than I could ever be myself. And so I'm always thinking about how that works out for individual people, how we have the right dynamic together, how that leads to great client outcomes. And, I think that it is like Jake said, I think you have to build it into the system. I think one thing that's an emerging thread right now that I don't like, is this, I like that we're asking our middle management and managers to be effective. That's a really wise question. Seeing our clients in large companies literally destroy layers of management, right? And this idea that you should be a middle manager and you have 4 people that work for you, and then that's what we do. That's to me asinine. The idea that we have a middle manager or a senior manager type person, departmental, and they've got 50 people working for them, that's also equally asinine. So it's so I don't know, but that's an emerging leadership theme that's being driven by some AI components, some just cost acceleration. But I think as we're prone to do, kind of little swings, and so you're seeing this in huge swaths of kind of that being done. And I've said, I did it again this morning. I do often I joke about being overhead. I'm very proud, what my role is and what I do. But I'd say that intentionally because that's a good reminder of what we do and how we exist, and making sure you're stewarding that investment. And that's where I would like to have companies and people go back and manage it. You are responsible for stewarding your time and energy of your team. I think that requires you to be thinking and reflective about that. So how do you do that and do that well, and doing that in a structured manner, I think is actually important. every one of us is different. It's easy to do on a plane, or it's easy to do. I mean, I do these a lot when I'm on the boat on a weekend, right? We all have those different cadences, but I do think you have to have them. And I think companies, just for us to then here's what we're going to do. Here's how it breaks down to this period. Like that whole construct. And it's going to be interesting. The technology consulting has been driven off the last generation. It's been driven off of really some derivative of agile based type thinking. It's going to be curious how I feel like agile is being, it's always been involved, but I think it's being involved now in different ways with the way that AI driven techniques, thinking, structures. But so it's going to be curious, like, not that whole mindset will change, but what does it look like and what's the need for daily practice?
Yeah. No, it's a slightly different concept. I'm going to slightly revise my answer, Ryan.
By the way, your tie-in was great. I've noticed a lot since becoming married and having kids. A lot of these leadership and business things,
right?
Very applicable to real life. So it was not a weird connection that you made there.
I'll take that. I mean, and maybe this is a bit of doing this and not necessarily thinking about it, but I am a big believer in the rhythms of rest and recovery. So, and I mean, to your point, everybody is different, but for me, one of the ways that looks like is like, hey, I will go hard in the week, on the weekend, not that I won't work, but like I will intentionally, not be on the laptop as much as I can doing email, or because for me, like I need that recovery period. So it's not quite a reflection, but similar concepts.
But you reflected on what you need, and
maybe there you go.
There's reflection in there.
Well, yeah, and building on that, I think it is also interesting. Now we're getting more into CS versus AWS, but like I think it's been interesting just the general themes on health, and whether it be wearable tech, all those components, what that means. I think it's been interesting to see the really the societal change on booze and all kinds of 1,000 different things. I mean, there's different drugs. I mean, is a thing we talk about for the whole talk about series of different elements, but it is a definite change, at least in our world, which is a fairly narrow world of high capacity, relatively intelligent, driven people. But like it is. So one of the things that going back into why objectives, not so now we're getting into maybe a podcast will do in a few weeks. I think as a leadership team, we're consultants. It's a grind. We're through it. That's technology consulting, and that's part of the game. We're just even looking at the average hours of the AI engineers at this. Average salary is over 7 figures, and they're working 100 hours. I mean, like there is a bit of relationship there, but like I think how we have more focus on health, more focus on rest, more focus on those elements. It's interesting. We were also joking earlier pre-recording around just the sports world and seeing some of the things of high performance, in the athletic world, then goes into hedge funds and those elements, bringing those and seeping those into more general business. But like, at the end of the day, if we believe this idea that human capital is the core competitive advantage, then companies in our business or historically have essentially said our human capital event, we need to have enough pillars, but we're going to spit up, chew out, draw. Like it's not been pairs methodology, but I think that's appropriate stereotype, I think, for the type of fields that we're in. And I think seeing a company that says that's not what we're going to do, whether it be the technique you were talking about, I think that's been good, or I think taking it one step to where you value that restoration, whatever that means. You value the reflected enough, then it goes back to the outcome. What part of why I'm excited about outcome? Like, if you're able to have that be your true measurement, growth and outcome, that's what we reward, and how you do it. And then, so I would think that just like, again, use an athlete, if they don't rest, like that's the impact right now, resting as an athlete is way more prevalent in that arena than it is in the business arena. And I think it should be more. It's more just arena. Yes. And I think, and it's almost, and then like in some fields, we actually celebrate, the working at the extremes. Like some point in this podcast, we will really talk about reshuffle, but we should bring them in. But in some of that themes, uneven there, talking about that, the way that we train, the way to learn, and all those different components. I think that the tools right now are gonna are pointing out that some of that weight that just happens to give out medicine early on. I was like, this is acid. You know, I mean, you going back to a 100-hour week, and sometimes you got to run fast to get there. But even then, that can happen for periods of time. And I think the companies that do this well, steward their employees well, it's not laziness. It's really valuable. And I don't think, at least I see in our client base and us, I think there's growth for firms to do that better.
Yep.
It's the old work smarter, not harder.
It's a simple axiom, but it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's just, and then will actually people believe that? And then again, how do you do that? I keep going back to, the challenge of that work hard, work not hard is that we all have different gifts and abilities. And so how do you create an environment to where you're still having more people build that they can do that and do it in that environment and not just have it be a rigged game of sorts. That makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. To me, that's super impactful. That's reflection going on from a leadership level. I think that's super important because at the end of the day, you got to trust your people, make sure they're taken care of. And how do you do that? You make sure that not only are they feeling taken care of inside the business, but also that they're able to take care of what they need to outside of it. Because believe it or not, we all have lives outside of this podcast studio.
Yeah. All right. But so this is more not the reflection, Jake, but I'll ask that question a little bit for your review. But like books or content, Jamie, are we free or things like that you're also just thankful for, just
Yeah. Well, I'll give you. So this trend's a little bit personal, so I'll give you the personal ones. Book wise, this is really silly, but this will give you a little insight into my dumb brain. I have been reading this year the Wheel of Time series, which is this old fantasy series. It's like 15 books long. Each book is about 1,000 pages. So it's just a slog. But man, some of these going back to these 100-hour weeks, it's a really fun escape. And so I have looked forward to that on my hey, I'm going to go lay in bed at the end of the day and I just get to go read this different world for a little bit. That's been fun. And then, my other one, this is not a book, but you talked about the time with your dad. One of the fun things for us this year is my dad has a little ranch, not too far outside Dallas, but my girls, Kevin knows this, are pretty girly girls. They're in dance 6 days a week. They love fishing. It's the weirdest thing. So one of the things that I've been very grateful for is we've spent, we're not out there every weekend, but enough times we'll go out there, we'll go fishing, and they love fishing, and it's a blast. So that's my other one.
There you go.
Now, do you guys just have a stack pile, or do you have someone that puts the fish on the hook in the water?
It is not a
Here's the
stack
pole.
pile. Now, what I will say is they don't take the fish off of the hook once they catch the fish. That's my job.
Yep.
But it's been a blast.
That's really fun.
It sounds like it's still Kevin's job too in his world
with his dad.
Yeah.
Take the deer off the hook.
Take good care of it. Yeah, definitely. There's the roles and responsibilities on the hunting for sure. That's cool. It's interesting. So we joke about talk about different books and working through that with different genres, but it is fun to have those escapes like that. And,
it is.
Yeah. I maybe not quite socially redeeming as Wheel of Time. I'm about to finish out the Power of the Dog series. I think that's also about 1,000 pages of book, but that's learned more about that world in the last 3 months than I ever thought I would possibly. Yeah. That's a pretty interesting book.
I've never read that one.
Yeah, just kind of looking at following a character through the Mexico drug trade from early 20s to 60s and 70s. So about 40-year period. Pretty fascinating. And that's a 3-book series. So a little dark at times, but pretty interesting.
Most of my reading these days is Goodnight Construction Site,
That's a
Where
good
the
one.
Wild Things Are. And then after I read about 20 of those for putting the 3-year-old down, I'm like, I can't read another book at the moment. So hopefully I'll have some better recommendations from my side in 2026 as maybe some of those get phased out. But
well, no, I think your next on your horizon is Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus.
there you go.
But they're still their classics.
That's right.
I will say this, and I'll give you an update next episode. So my little guy turns 3 tomorrow. And I had this great idea of I've always wanted to take him camping, but not sure we can pull it off if we're out in the woods. He's going to want to leave halfway through. So we're going to set up a little backyard
smart.
camp we'll make a fire. We'll go look for bugs and whatnot in the dark with our flashlights, and it'll be a good trial run to see if he can handle maybe the real thing. So stay tuned on the next episode for that to see how it went, because it could go horribly wrong. But you know what? If it does, I can just put him right back inside in his bedroom, and we can move on with our night.
Or better if you can keep him in the tent in the backyard while you do the tent room.
Something tells me he would find his way out of it and be wandering around the neighborhood just by knowing him.
Low jack in our game at this point. Maybe
Just put a little tag in his shoe.
well, some people call it dab watch. You do it in different ways. You get low jack, but yeah, well, that's really fun. That would be. Then you can graduate to Jake's dad. It's a little ranch.
That's right. Come on out. Come fishing.
Open invite. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We'll do a whole discussion around the efficacy of camping versus hiking versus.
That's what I want this pod to be, right? We're going to obviously talk about the big important things in business and technology, but also have a little fun too and talking about what's going on in our worlds, because I think people care about that.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. I've actually heard people care about that.
It'd be fun for us. So we can record out there.
Yeah, there you go.
It is interesting, again, this to give a little bit more on the personal, been a really cool, professional and personal worlds, and my personal professional worlds really are intertwined, which is always, it's a joy to have that. But it's been interesting to see, my girls, are now moving into middle school and into kind of teen, and that has definitely been a shift from the books that you're talking about. And I think that was an important shift as our role as parents are to create highly functioning young people and into adults. But it's been a noticeable shift for us, and that was one that I may have been a little slow to the uptick that had happened. And so I've been rapidly over the last couple months retooling my toolkit of how to raise 3 girls, and but it's been a joy to do that and fun. But it's good reminder that we have to continue to evolve what we do to be able to serve and to care for the things that we value most. And what worked today is not likely going to work tomorrow, but the themes of how those work often will stay the same. The techniques and thinking change, and it's just like it's fun to think about how do we serve a client, or how do we deploy technology, how do we think about growing a team. It's fun to think about that in our family, the people that we care about most. How do we think about their unique gifts? Whether we dance or chasing bugs in the backyard or complaining about Dallas sports. I mean, whatever that might be, it's like how that, how do we help them through those different moments?
Yeah.
It's all relevant here on the Pure Signal pod. Again, it ties back into everyday life, right? Like business ties back into life more than people think. So I'll give you an opportunity. It sounds like those are some great final thoughts for you, Kev. Jake, any final thoughts? It sounds like we have a lot to be thankful for the year that was, and a lot to look forward to for the year that's coming.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. I don't think there's anything I can add to that.
Perfect. Well, thank you both as always. Again, stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of exciting stuff coming up. AWS reInvent, daily content from the Pure Signal pod, on the ground, live in person, all that good stuff. And then obviously CES in January as well. So a lot of exciting things coming up to round out the end of the year. And then we will get things ramped up big time for 2026. But yeah, this has been another episode of Pure Signal, reminding you to be curious, be bold, and go crush it out there.